Hey there, it's Paul Clinton again, host of the B2B Marketing How to Stand Out podcast. And this episode is all about alignment between sales and marketing. How to do it. What are some ways from a sales lens to bring marketing into these relationships with the customer and ongoing discussions and presentations and relationships during like longer sales cycles. We interviewed Erin Walker, who was recently the global vice president of direct sales for Lytx, which is a near enterprise SaaS company. And we asked Erin a number of these questions. She had some great ideas. So I hope you enjoyed the interview. Hey, Aaron. So thanks again for joining us on the B2B Marketing, How to Stand Out podcast. Kind of just wanted to get your perspective. You've got a lot of great experience in the enterprise, doing direct sales, with pretty big customers. So I think you're going to have a lot of insights for us. But, kind of wanted to just talk to you a little bit upfront about this idea of alignment between sales and marketing. It seems like this can look slightly different in different organizations, and some companies kind of put it under this umbrella revenue operations or RevOps. But I kind of wanted to just get your thoughts on how important is that when it comes to trying to do messaging and positioning work. How important is it for you to kind of have alignment there?
The relationship between sales and marketing is critical. And I've found that it has been a vital resource for me to have strong alignment on the marketing side. Marketing likes to paint the picture of the product and what we really do in the market and how we can differentiate. Sales often will see that, but then they regurgitate it in their own way. But
Mhm.
having a clear line and a collaboration between your field marketing team, the marketing product marketing team, the technical team, and the sales team to understand what is it that we really do in business value selling and business solution selling. I think having that relationship with the marketing team is extremely critical.
And some sales leaders will say, marketing isn't really my thing. I leave that to the marketing team. How do you view it, and how do you view like what is the role of sales in the development of the messaging of what we say? Of course, we hear the phrase sales is closest to the customer. So, certainly the marketing team can learn a lot from listening to perhaps recorded gong calls or transcripts or things like that. But what are some like specific, tactics or ways that you kind of get that, better alignment so you can do the messaging and the positioning in a more effective way?
So it goes much further than after the sale or hey, here's a beautiful package, a first call deck of go to market. Here's everything for you. Go do it. I think it's really incumbent on from a leadership perspective, and that's where I put a lot of emphasis on my role is to ensure that I'm crossing paths with everyone from a marketing standpoint, my product team, and the technical aspects to understand, most importantly, what is it that sales is hearing? Because if there is a disconnect between what we're putting into the market and what we're really hearing from our customers, we need to mitigate that. More than 70% of our customers today, no matter the product line that you're selling in B2B, they do their research, they understand and know who they're going to go to market with and evaluate. And so the marketing team is vital to ensure that they understand and know why we win. How do we differentiate between the competitors in the marketplace? And so where I have been extremely successful is partnering with field marketing to understand and bring them along. If we're at an event, I anticipate that they are there. They're listening to the customer's pain points. We're not leading with product. We're leading with asking questions and getting very inquisitive so that we come back with a solution that best meets their needs. And then probably the most important piece is then after the sale. So once you win, whether I win or I lose,
Mhm.
on the back end, it's really getting an understanding of how did we differentiate when we were doing a win-loss analysis, or then how did I lose, and understanding really where should I improve from either a sales perspective or a launch perspective within the product.
I know some sales teams, like in the CRM, you can track like either closed won or closed lost reason, the reason for that. And how important is like a data field like that in your CRM, and sort of putting together kind of like the more common, I guess you could say, objections or reasons why we didn't get the deal. I mean, is that something that we need to have like top of mind?
I think it directionally, yes, absolutely. But in most cases, you can have a drop down in Salesforce or whatever your CRM of choice is. I think that directionally, yes, but it has to be relevant and there has to be a consistent ongoing checks and balances. Are we capturing the right data within the CRM? Directionally, that gives you the great insights. But more importantly, as sales leaders, it is incumbent on us if we're going into a big account or a large account and you're having customer conversations, don't limit it to just the sales team or the customer success team or the technical team. Bring your product team and product marketing team or field marketing team along for the ride. As long as you have a marketing voice in the room, that is a clear differentiator because I can tell you today, in most of the companies that I've been at, bringing those product individuals or marketing individuals along for the ride so they can hear,
Yeah.
they eat that up, they love it. And more importantly, it gives me credibility that I'm not one person asking for an enhancement on a platform. Because oftentimes, as we go through and we look at the roadmap review, does sales have a seat at the table? Yes. But often, if I don't have the buy-in from my CTO internally, my CMO internally, if I don't have those same level of inputs from other
Mhm.
executives, then my voice is often, yes, that's maybe one customer, or maybe that's two customers. If I have other executives that absolutely have had that exposure and that engagement, it gives us more ammunition to help make improvements faster to the product and the roadmap.
Do you have a thought about having the marketing leader or marketing person in the room, so to speak, on the sales call, or is it more kind of a post-mortem where they're taking a look at some of the call transcripts or some of the notes in the CRM and they're kind of getting it that way?
Having some tools and resources, example being like Gong, that gives you great insights of who's leading calls. Is it more customer or is it sales or is it product or is it tech? That gives you great directional insight, especially as you look at larger customers. For your specific question, if you have someone that's in the room and they're from product, to be very fair, they're an executive representing your customer, your company.
Mhm.
So my anticipation is that they don't necessarily, they bring an added value to a business leader,
Mhm.
right? So customers see us as sales. Sometimes they see someone else as support. When they hear someone that understands and knows the technology and they also understand the pain points, they have same
Yeah.
to similarity stories, they actually have more credibility and they give me a differentiator just as a company in general when I allow for their engagement. Not only at that meeting, but that customer also has an additional name and resource after the actual transaction and sale.
Yeah, and tell me, that sounds great. So you sound like you involve the product marketing team a lot more. Is there kind of a risk of it kind of becoming a little too pitchy or a little too technical? I mean, it sounds like you're kind of trying to, in your sales process, you it sounds like you're trying to uncover pain points and trying to deal with it from kind of a bigger picture layer, whereas a lot of times we hear, don't get too technical, don't pitch your product too much, in these discovery calls. But is that a concern for you, or is it more like you said, just kind of a like the walking encyclopedia on the product that can answer, and clarify when needed?
More so, especially as you have larger transactions, it should be more of a conversation, executive to executive. We're having a conversation to understand and to best address the concerns in your business. Why are we even talking today, right? It doesn't necessarily have to do with the widget or software solution. It really has to do with what you're trying to address in your business.
Boom.
And so bringing someone from the product marketing side, what they get to hear is two different things. They get to hear exactly what the problems are in the customer's environment. And very first and foremost, they also have a big influence on, has our marketing been addressing that?
Hmm.
Have we actually been addressing those pain points in
Hmm.
our last few strategies? Because if it's been a complete miss, they're hearing it directly from the customer. So
Hmm.
from a employee standpoint, my field marketing team, they get that insight right away. From a customer standpoint, and then from my sales team's perspective, I have an added resource that's having conversations that maybe my AE or myself, maybe we haven't been
Mhm.
in front of a customer. Let's say this is in construction. We haven't been in front of a construction customer in the last 6 months
Mhm.
that's specific to this particular use case. But my product marketer knows exactly what's happening,
Mhm.
has seen 2 or 3 of these issues, and we've onboarded them and they've been a part of that. They add that instant credibility of
Mhm.
what it is that's in that industry. Now, I could regurgitate that. My
Mhm.
sales team could absolutely do
Mhm.
that, and we are still seen as trusted advisors.
Mhm.
But what's really impactful is to have someone else that has nothing to do with sales really give that point of clarity as to how we differentiate. So the way I utilize anyone in the marketing piece, especially when we're face to face, it is to establish and build credibility and relationships, not
Mhm.
necessarily to push a product or to push the company.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that I love right there is kind of this targeted approach to like industry verticals. You're taking a look at some of the industry verticals that you're selling into or marketing into, and really trying to better understand that. And like we've worked with clients where we've helped them build these targeted landing pages for different industry verticals, and they've been pretty helpful, kind of high intent kind of landing pages for certain things like that. But how important is that to really to do some of that, more, I don't know, I guess you could call it audience segmentation, but to kind of get into the weeds a little bit more into, the different industries and the different, niches that the company is kind of selling into, and really understanding that and speaking to that in a more detailed way.
Yeah, that 100%. That is definitely an area. Looking at the segmentation of an industry and what's happening within an industry, and when you walk in, oftentimes my sales team will say, "How is it that you were able to build a relationship so quickly?" And it's not because of the product, and it's not because of who necessarily I am. It's more I did the research to understand the industry, and I understood the pain points, and I did maybe some additional review as to how I should best lead with
Mhm.
whether it's the customer segmentation, and that gives me instant credibility walking in the room. Never should we have to pitch, especially now in this current economy where you're truly pitching the way we did 5 years ago, let alone 2 years ago. It really comes down to understanding me as a client, understanding what's the problem in my environment, and how are you best going to address it. Because really the reality of everything is, whether I'm selling software, I'm selling hardware, I'm selling anything to you, as a customer, I need to understand that after that point of sale, I can still trust that we have the same level of engagement and support.
Mhm.
That is the most critical piece on the back end, because again, they're doing 70 to 75% of their research online. They're making the determination
Mhm.
about pricing, industry leader, product, all of the things that we use to spend a significant amount of time on in concepts on. They're
Mhm.
doing a lot of that research so that they can
Yeah.
accelerate and actually show impact to their business.
Mhm.
After that sale, they want to continue to have that reliable, trusted relationship with you.
And what does that look like? Kind of going back to the messaging part, which I care a lot about, is
Yeah.
talking to these different industry verticals. I mean, is that something that is kind of up to marketing to kind of figure out, or where can sales collaborate, with marketing on the messaging piece? Do the product marketing people or the growth marketing people, do they, like in your experience, like fully understand these industry verticals as well as the sales team does? Or is that, how do you collaborate like a little bit more specifically in kind of getting messaging that isn't just sort of surface level and generic and broad,
Yeah.
that talks about, I see a lot of messaging on websites that's just too broad, it just talks about
Yeah.
big picture stuff. But when you get into the messaging on some of these specific verticals, you have to be more specific. So how do you do that, I guess? Do you have some thoughts on how you pull something like that off?
Yes. And so let me get a little bit more specific for you in how I have been very effective in it. I truly believe from a sales perspective, and my sales teams would all tell you, marketing always has a seat at the table. It is a collaboration between the sales team, marketing team, products. I put them together, and I'll always put them together. They've always had a seat at the table in a weekly team meeting. They always have a seat at the table if we're going to go on customer onsite. They've always had a seat at the table at QBRs.
Mhm.
And the reason being is marketing is putting a lot of great campaigns together in the go-to-market strategy and what we need to go do to drive to hit a certain revenue target. So that marketing sales plan, the MSP, is critical. But they also need to understand what's really happening in the real world. And so giving them that opportunity in a lot of companies, that relationship between the two, sometimes it's very friction. There's a lot of friction between the two. And it's incumbent on the sales leader to make sure that in my job, no matter what company I'm with, no matter what solution I'm putting into the market, I need to be able to bring everyone to the table, and that relationship needs to be very collaborative. So specifically, let's talk about transportation most recently. So having something like a fleet solution, being very closely aligned with my field marketing team, we're going out to conferences. We're going out, we're doing CIO level dinners. We're getting that face engagement. The great thing about that is there are metrics behind the scenes that my field marketing team is looking at to say, are these very effective? Are we hitting the mark? Are we having the right conversation? Are we giving the right messaging? Because that should then correlate to the pipeline that's being contributed back to the business. On a much more broader scale, I'm bringing in my product team, not only to say, hey, we're going out to meet with these partners, right? So we have some very large partners that actually attribute to a lot of our deals and opportunities that are net new. Are we hitting the mark in the actual resale ecosystem? Do the resale partners understand exactly what we're giving to the end customer? And so that relationship 100% is incumbent on the sales leader to ensure that marketing has that voice, because otherwise what will happen is we will go to market with a campaign. We will anticipate we're going to get XYZ increase in pipeline generation. It falls flat, and ultimately responsibility falls to the marketing team. I own that. My perspective, it's a 50-50. We should be doing this together. So they always have a seat at the table. And I think that's the most powerful piece that I want to convey, is that it's our responsibility as sales leaders to bring them.
Yeah, and we just did actually our last podcast was just marketing in the partner channel and messaging in the partner channel, and that's a very interesting kind of dynamic where you have to approach it and look at the messaging differently because you're not talking as much to like an end user, you're talking more to another business that needs to see the value in bundling what they do and what you do and going to market as kind of a bundle. So that's kind of different messaging, and that's a whole nother conversation, which we'll let the listeners listen to the last one I did for that. But
Sure.
you know, talk a little bit about. I want to just kind of move you back to sales funnel. The way we kind of look at it is three stages. We look at it as like traffic to MQL, MQL to SQL, and SQL to opportunity. And we kind of see, messaging opportunities at each of those points and each of those handoffs or conversions. And we've talked a lot about, the messaging that marketing does, but I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on kind of that last stage of the pipeline when we're going from like an SQL to opportunities. So maybe it's like a presentation call or something, or follow-ups, or looking at your sales decks and how they're framing the problems. But what opportunities do you see, there to kind of refine the messaging that where sales is really directly impacting that with the messaging. Do you involve the marketing folks at all at that point, or how do you make sure that kind of what you're saying is not only aligned with what you said before, but
Yeah.
is working?
So your topic is a great topic, because you see that maturation of the pipeline, and then all of a sudden it gets to a point and it doesn't necessarily, it seems to be a cliff, right? It either stays and eventually is close lost, or it does move through the next natural stages. About 2 companies ago, my company, I'll go ahead and I'll tell you, with Sitecore, we did a phenomenal job of actually looking at the maturation of the pipeline. And so I think sales is extremely important. So as I'm doing forecast reviews with my sales team, I follow a cadence. So in weeks 3, 6, 9, and 12, throughout the course of a quarter, you're always looking at your existing pipeline to ensure that you're hitting what was committed to the business. In weeks 3 and 9 are probably the most important on pipeline generation. And this is exactly where marketing comes to the table. I have them a part of these calls because No matter the size of company, you typically have a BDR, a business development rep that's gone through the motions, handed a deal or opportunity off to a sales account executive to take it to the next level. And so I start to look at age of deals and the maturation by stage as we have those leads come through.
Mhm.
And so together as a team, what I absolutely am very purposeful on is I have BDR on those particular weeks. Let's really talk about why these deals were opportunities, how you uncovered them, and then the handoff. And then the next is then I talk with the sales team. I have the sales team give us a quick readout. If you think about the size, it doesn't matter the size of company, your teams are scaled appropriately. You're
Mhm.
only doing this 2 to 3 times throughout the course of a quarter.
Mhm.
One, it's giving marketing insight as to what's coming in, those MQLs that are coming through,
Mhm.
as they're being handed off, what is next stage. And so more often than not, because what I was finding as a sales leader is that pipeline was filling up, but then it was dropping off by quarter. And what I wanted to do was mitigate that risk. So
Yeah.
throughout the course of your quarter, you should absolutely be closing deals. But most importantly, we are looking to fill the funnel and maturing that pipeline along. And
Yeah.
so that's what I found is that you have to put the visibility on those MQLs and the SQLs, have to make sure that you're very diligent in making sure that teams are talking. We're talking to the customer. We're not leaving things until the customer's ready.
Mhm.
Now, to give you a great example, what
Mhm.
marketing may be hearing, or the BDR sales leader might hear as we go through those calls,
Mhm.
is, you know what, we're maybe a little too early. That's not really a sales qualified lead yet. This customer is only looking for questions to be answered. They're not necessarily ready to make an investment. That's not a sales opportunity. And
Mhm.
then from a sales perspective, we have to then be okay with, but there's still a need. Do we go ahead and move this into a pipeline phase and then start nurturing that?
Mhm.
From a business standpoint, you have to be very cognizant of how you want that defined because you never want to lose those opportunities. And that's probably the most critical is understanding what's a marketing qualified lead, what's a sales qualified lead, and
Mhm.
if sales now has accepted it, do you want them? Do you want the sales leader to sales account executive to do it? Because 9 times out of 10, you do, and then it's the responsibility. What are we going to do as we nurture that along? Again, every
Mhm.
step of the way, marketing has a seat at the table in those conversations.
It's interesting because we hear some from time to time that with MQLs, like okay, they might be interested in what we're doing and what we're talking about, but maybe they're not in a buying cycle right now, or maybe they don't have budget right now. So, I mean, is that even though they are interested, or maybe they will at one point be? I mean, is that a factor for you trying to figure that out?
So two different. I'm going to give you two different answers. First and foremost, I don't want to lose sight of that opportunity because obviously someone was interested. They were doing their due diligence. They're probably doing a lot of data gathering.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that is what is, from my perspective, that is a critical lead for the business development team to continue to nurture, put it into a cadence in the business development side, continue to send information out. But the reality may be this is an analyst or this is someone that doesn't have any authority to really make an investment.
Yeah.
So it's important to ensure that we empower the BDR team to understand what are the critical questions that need to be asked. And at the same time, put it on a drip campaign. Keep us at the forefront of their mind. If the customer does absolutely have an overarching need, they know that we're going for budget. We are
Mhm.
absolutely looking to make an investment. We don't have all of those things now. At that point, it is an opportunity to then engage with the sales team, and depends on the company. Oftentimes, we'll go ahead and convert that to an opportunity,
Mhm.
park it out 2 quarters, and then it's
Yeah.
incumbent on the sales team to continue to nurture that and own it from a sales perspective because we know there is a potential for a sale
Yeah.
here, and we don't want it to be lost in that drip campaign with the BR.
Might just be kind of a timing thing. So,
100%. That's
and
extremely important in the BANT qualification.
yeah. And last question. I mean, give me your thoughts, like just on the messaging itself. And this is, I mean, I guess what we kind of deal with, day in, day out is, companies seem to have data in different places, but maybe the data isn't all kind of coming together on a dashboard. I mean, like, how do like I have ways of kind of helping companies gain clarity on like where their messaging may not be working or what stage it may be failing or breaking. Like for example, you just alluded to a minute ago, hey, we're getting all this traffic from like our paid ads or organic even on our website, but then we're not getting enough demo calls, or we're not getting, or people are ghosting us, or getting like a high no-show rate or something. So you can kind of see there, like, oh, maybe the messaging on the website is off, or what have you. But I mean, do you have ways where you can kind of look at whatever stage it's at, or hey, let's take a closer look at the sales decks and make sure that we're, like there's some pain points in there and some outcomes in there versus just kind of cheerleading testimonials. But I mean, is there a way for you to kind of see, like, did you ever try to diagnose, like, what that, the messaging could not be working at this point? And how do we know at what point the messaging isn't working? Was there a way for you to kind of figure that out?
Directionally, and to be fair, Paul, I think everyone probably has a little bit of a hodgepodge of how they look at some of this, right? Because it's not 100% exactly where you're losing pipeline. But the way that I have chosen in the last few companies that I've been at, we've invested in a wonderful tool called Gong.
Yeah.
And so Gong, I can very clearly, whether you're on site or whether you are doing just a regular call, I can clearly go in and see where I'm losing deals and opportunities. And the great thing about it is, can that give me insight for marketing? Yes. For me as a sales leader, it gives me great insight. Are you using the tools that are being provided to you, right? Oftentimes, are
Mm-hmm.
you using the first call deck? Are you leading with who we are, and what differentiates us? Or are we jumping straight into the conversation and answering everything for the customer, but really leaving our message and value to the side? Right? That's a great coaching opportunity.
Yeah.
But more importantly, if we are delivering the message, what it does also offer me, especially whether it is a conference room and you always have one person that's always dialed in. So that's the glory with Gong, is it also gives me great insight. Where am I losing the customer? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
even if it's a 5-page first call deck and I'm going through the messaging,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm getting rebuttals from a customer, I'm
Mm-hmm.
able to now capture that in aggregate that scales no matter the size. And I can see exactly where we might have a gap, whether it's going through pricing exercise, whether it's going through a product exercise and going through the differentiation, or going through a roadmap review. I can see what lands and what doesn't.
Nice.
But that's the way I've been able to really look at, especially when someone's not hitting some of their targets,
Mm-hmm.
to go back and really take a look. Is it the messaging? Is it the product? And what can I do to help fine tune some of that?
And you're right about the positioning and the differentiators being really important. And you're at the enterprise level, and I see this as well. It's pretty important. I feel like there are even companies even at the SMB level or mid-market companies that should at least be doing some type of, at least look at the websites of your 3 to 5 competitors. Just look and see what they're saying. You don't have to do extensive, battle cards or competitive intelligence, but I don't know if you would have any advice for even, smaller companies to at least look at what the competitors are saying. I mean, that does help you,
Yeah,
with some of this positioning work, doesn't it?
absolutely. So your example is perfect. About 10 years ago, it was a small middleware company, and it was very, very, very small. And we didn't have a marketing. We had a marketing team and we were building that marketing team up. But the number one thing is there were 3 major competitors that were in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. And so from the sales team, very quickly I stepped to a role, and I had a sales team, and they were like, but we don't know exactly how we differentiate. This is an API tool. We're a data integration tool. And very quickly, it took me maybe 30 minutes. And I went out, I did research on, here's the competitors, here's where we are. I went and I sat down with one of our chief technology officers and said, okay, here's what they're saying. What's our value add? So if I hear this from a customer, what's my positioning statement? And I had to create and craft my own battle card. It wasn't hard, but it was
Mhm.
absolutely the right thing to do, is just to understand as you're going in and talking to a customer and leading off, you never
Mhm.
put the competitor down, but you're clearly differentiating how my solution and ease of use is
Mhm.
different in the market. And that's all customers really want to hear.
And that's nice. At least you had a resource that you could refer to, but before the calls, and that was probably wasn't too complicated to put together, something like that.
Thank you very
Good.
much
Okay.
for the time and opportunity. This was
Yeah.
great.
Thank you so much for your time, Aaron. Really, really great to talk to you.